I wish I didn't withdraw my pension at that time, because now I really need it. I know I thought I needed it 2 years ago, but now I really, really, really need it, and it's gone. Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and thank you so much for joining me yet again. If it is your first time here, andiswa.mojapelo, and on this channel I chat about all things related to managing your money and adulting in general. So if that sounds like your type of vibe, please make sure that you check out our other videos as well. And if you like what you see, don't hesitate to smash the subscribe button and become a member of the team. Guys, today we are talking about what happens when you withdraw your pension, right? When you either take a part of your pension or you do a full withdrawal after resigning. Now, I always start with a bit of context on why I decided to have a conversation. So something that I've noticed on YouTube from our faves, especially the ones that I watch and that I know that most of you watch as well, because my analytics do show me what other channels you guys watch. Anyway, so something that I've noticed is when people quit their jobs or resign in order to focus on full-time influencing or starting their own business or venturing on something private and setting something up, something that I hear quite often is that, okay guys, I will be using some of my savings as well as a part of my pension. Now, I know that a lot of us know, especially if you've been around the team for long enough, that you do not have your access to your pension up until your pensionable age, which is either 55, 60 or 65, depending on the type of pension vehicle that we are referring to, right? The point is you don't have access to the funds up until a certain age. But at the same time, here we have people on the other side saying that I'm going to be using some of my pension in order to set myself up or to cover my expenses until I am fully stable. Now, I thought to myself watching that, I would be sitting wondering, I thought I couldn't access my pension, but these people are using their pension. How does that work, right? And I want us to chat a bit about that, especially because I haven't seen anyone dive into the details of, how does it work when you make this decision? What are some of the implications, if any? What is the process and all of those things? So that's the chat today, and that's why. First things first, this conversation is for people who voluntarily decide to access their pension upon resignation. I'm not talking to people who've decided to emigrate, people who've been dismissed, retrenched, permanently disabled, and all of those things, people who've, where the pension is accessed because of some other reason, either than voluntarily deciding to leave your job and accessing a part of your pension, whether you're going to another job or whether you're venturing on something as an individual. The reason I want to stress that is because in these other factors that I've mentioned, some of the implications might be slightly different depending on the circumstance that you're in. So this chat is only for people who decide to resign and access part of their pension, either because they're going to another employer and they want to use the funds for whatever reason, or they're not going to another employer and they want to use the funds for their own personal reasons and managing the expenses, etc. Right? Not people who are doing any of the things that I've mentioned. So that's important to note. Okay, let's get straight into it. I've broken down some of the implications and things that you need to consider when making this decision, or some of the moving parts around making this decision. Like I said in the videos that I've watched, it's something that's just been mentioned in passing, like I access my pension. Or I use some of my pension savings, and not much detail is given into the how, the process, and the things that to be mindful of, etc. So I've broken down things to think about into 3, right, that I'm going to be taking you guys through. This doesn't mean that this is the end all and be all of all implications or things that you need to consider, but I do think that it's things that are important that I put out there and make you aware of. The first thing are the tax implications. Now, this is something that you are going to face immediately after deciding to withdraw partial or full pension, right, on you leaving from your employer. Now, tax implications are something that you are going to face upfront. The reason for that is I once did a video on, filing your tax returns and the benefits of contributing towards pension. And if you remember, if you don't, I'll link the video in the cards. But if you remember, I emphasized that the government gets very excited when we contribute towards pension because we are basically helping ease the load on the public sector. So the public sector needs to take care of things like, schools, government schools, hospitals, clinics, and all of those things. But if you are able to, at your pension, access private sector paying, that means that you release the strain that's going to fall on the public sector. And obviously you won't need things like social grants and all of those things. So the more people save towards pension, the better for the government. So they get very excited and they give you a lot of benefits when you contribute towards pension because of that reason. Likewise, when you decide not to keep your end of the bargain and take your pension earlier, you're not tricking the system because they are going to tax you for that. And I feel like it's a significant amount of tax that you pay when you decide to make that decision. Now, I'm going to put up a table of the sliding scale tax table for retirement lump sum benefits when you do decide to withdraw. Important things to note from the table is, number one, the first 27,500 Rand is tax-free, meaning that if you decide to withdraw 27,500 Rand, you won't be charged any tax on that withdrawal. But you're only allowed to do this once, right? If you decide to make multiple withdrawals, you've already exhausted your first 27,500, and anything after that accumulates and attracts tax. Anything after that attracts an 18% tax rate, right? And this is up to a maximum of about 726,000. But for the purpose of this chat, we're just going to pay attention to that second part, even though I'm sharing the entire table. This means that you get the 27,500 Rand tax-free when you withdraw, and then anything after that 27,500 to that maximum then attracts an 18% tax rate. Guys, this is a significant amount of money. Like 18% of your hard-earned cash is a lot of money. And let me use as an example that I worked with. So if it is your first time withdrawing from your pension and you've never done so before, it's important that you've never done so before, because if you had, you would have already exhausted your 27,500 free, and you'd now be, attracting tax on the entire amount, okay? If you had withdrawn more than 27,500 already. Now I'm working with the example of someone's first time. You withdraw 100,000 Rand and you say that you want 100,000 Rand from your pension fund after your resignation, because you want to use the money to pay some of your debts, to also sustain yourself for 2 or 3 months until you find another job. Now that portion after 27,500 to 100,000 is going to attract an 18% tax rate, and this amount works out to about 13,000 odd, okay, in tax that you are going to pay from that 100,000, which means that in essence, you end up receiving approximately 86,000 Rand as opposed to 100,000 Rand, and the rest goes to SARS. If you had already withdrawn before after leaving your previous employer, then this would be much more as well. So you can now understand how significant it is, how significant the tax implications are when you decide to withdraw, and why you need to consider that. Because sometimes we can think that asking for 100,000, we're going to receive 100,000 Rand when we leave our employer. That is not true. Tax calculations are done. They look at what you previously withdrew after a certain date, and then they calculate tax using that, and you receive the net of that full amount. So those are the tax implications, guys. I will link a link in the description box where you can use to play around different lump sums if you are interested in finding out, how much will this be taxed, how much will that be taxed. But it is important to sit down with someone who's knowledgeable, preferably your financial advisor, to help you further, because like I said, if you have withdrawn before, that is also going to impact the amount of tax that you've been charged. Now, what's important from this impact, or the first impact that we've discussed, which is tax implications, number one, you will not be celebrated for withdrawing that pension. As a result, you will be taxed, okay? So don't think that you're running away or you're tricking the government in some form. You will be taxed. The second thing is that the amount that you withdraw is not the amount that you receive. That is something that's important to note as well. The third thing is that remember, when you leave an employer, you're not forced to withdraw. There are other options you can use in order to preserve your funds. So this withdrawal is something that you are doing voluntarily because there is a way of preserving that pension fund. Okay, what is the second implication? The second implication, and something to consider, is the fact that things are never as bad as they seem in that moment. And the same goes for money. Now, often you think that, oh my God, I need this pension because I've got this great business idea and, I'm not going to get another opportunity. Or secondly, you think, oh my God, this is the worst debt I've been in and I'm never going to be in debt again. I'm going to make up for it. And I just need this pension money in order to boost me. And then I'll get back in line. And then you use the money at that point. But history has shown us, especially cycles of life, that things are never as bad as they seem. And sometimes, or often, you get into another situation where you think that, oh, snap, I wish I didn't withdraw my pension at that time because now I really need it. I know I thought I needed it 2 years ago, but now I really, really, really need it. And it's gone. And you can't get it back. And neither can you get back the returns, the growth, or the interest that money could have earned had you vested it in an investment and kept it there. So that's the second impact, guys, of deciding to withdraw this pension, is once you're out, you are out, right? And I do want to say that it doesn't mean that it'll always be a negative outcome. For example, it is possible, I don't know how probable it is, but it is possible that you take this money and you invest in this great business idea and it just booms, and you happen to, like, within a year, very short space of time, but within a year you're able to put back triple what you took out into something that's pension related, and boom, you are better off. So I'm not saying that's impossible, but I am saying that the risk is high. There's no guarantee. You don't know if that will happen, and most times you find that it doesn't happen, right? Or it's not common. So I'm going to discuss the areas in which are more common and what you need to look out for should that not happen, and should that business not boom, and should you regret going the other route. But I didn't want to stress that I'm not saying it's impossible for you to make up for that, but I'm saying that it's going to be really, really difficult, and I want to discuss things that are most probably going to happen. Okay, so the second thing was, things are never as bad as they seem, and you may reach a point in your life where you genuinely need to access your pension, be it during pension or 2 years before pension or anytime before that, and now it's like a dire situation and you've already used that card and you don't have that card anymore, or you've used that card, which means now that the tax that you pay is higher because you've exhausted that first 2,700 that I spoke about in the beginning. It's gone, and now you're like, oh, had I kept it, I would have used it far better for what I have now. Then the third thing that I want to discuss, which is the last one, is compound interest and its relationship with time. Guys, because of the way that the financial markets work, and again, I've discussed investments, different types of investments in a different video. If you haven't watched that, guys, please keep up, because we're referring to previous information. But we discussed the way that investments work and the way that financial markets work in a different video. And what I want to take away from that is time plays a very important part. Because financial markets are very volatile in the short term, you want to be invested as long as possible to make sure that during those up cycles, you are invested, right? And you don't get into a point where you invest for 3 years or 4 years, and at that time in which you are invested for 3 or 4 years, the market is doing really badly and your investment never gets to retire. That's the whole thing about time, is that the more time you give your investment, the more likely you are to get good returns because you were a part of every cycle. But so the point I'm trying to make is that if you tell yourself that, you know what, I'm going to withdraw all my pension, and then when I'm close to 50, I'm just going to start investing for pension, and by then I'll have more, and number one, what are the chances of that happening? Think of all the times that you saved, you didn't save, and you thought you'd save sooner to the goal time. Did it happen? Think of all the times you withdrew money from your fixed deposit because you thought you would use it to settle debt. Did you settle debt? You get what I mean? And then you lose out on time because of those cycles that I've just mentioned. So that's the third thing that you need to think about when it comes to withdrawing your pension is if you only start saving for pension and making up for that lost time and that money closer to you retiring, you are really putting yourself at a disadvantage. There's actually a calculation that I once saw long ago, and I'm paraphrasing, please don't quote me on this, but it said something like, it is far better to invest 500 rand from a very early age rather than invest 4,000 rand closer to retirement. Because of time and the effect of compound interest a long time, you are far better off investing a little over a longer period than you are trying to play catch up. So that's something else that you need to think about. Those are the three things that I really think are important. And the last one, guys, that I'm actually thinking about now is the fact that often you think, I'm going to withdraw this pension money and I'm going to pay off debt but what you find is that you end up paying off that debt and then you accumulate more debt in the process of you working, because life happens, things come up, and now it's like 20 years down the line, you exhausted all of your pension to pay off debt, but now you've accumulated new debt while you were working, and now you're at pension without a pension fund, still with debt and no savings. And I think the current stat is like way less than 10% of South Africans are able to retire comfortably. Actually, it's way less than 10%, yes, are able to retire comfortably. And a more close to home example of this is, think of the amount of money that we have to send home for our parents to help them sustain themselves and look after themselves. The reason for that is because they don't have enough to retire, or they can't afford to retire and sustain themselves. And I think the last thing that we want is for our children to go through the same cycle where they now need to give us a monthly allowance because we can't afford to retire and we withdrew and all of those things when we could have saved for retirement, and they now need to be our retirement plans, and then the vicious cycle continues on and on and on, because obviously because of that they won't have enough to save for their retirement because we're an expense, and then their children will have to look after them, and then you get what I mean. We live in those type of scenarios and cycles. So it's very important that you make a very informed decision about what you would like to do when you decide to resign. Again, I'm not saying that these two scenarios will play out exactly like I've mentioned them. The one guarantee I have is tax. That's definitely going to happen. But the other two scenarios, like I said, who knows? Things boom and you've made the best decision of your life and it works out. But then what happens when it doesn't, which is in most cases what happens. What happens then? You're behind, you've lost out on compound growth, you're now short of retirement and relying on other people. And those are all things that you need to consider. I know that it's not fun to save for retirement. I know that we're not guaranteed to even live that long. And it sometimes feels like, why am I broke all my life only to have money at retirement when I'm old and gray? It does feel like that. But I think if you have a bigger picture in mind, if you have a legacy picture in mind, and if you're also very thoughtful and mindful of your children whom you don't want to put the responsibility of your retirement on, then it's all going to make a little more sense. Now, I really hope that this chat helps. If you are or have been thinking about resigning and withdrawing some of your pension to either, pay off debt, fund a business, travel, take a sabbatical, or whatever it is that you decide to do, I hope that what we've discussed does help you in your decision making. Remember that I am never here to offer you any advice or to tell you what the right thing to do for you is, but I'm definitely here to provide information, to share insights and my personal opinion on the things that you need to consider in order to make good and healthy financial decisions. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video till the end. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to give it a huge thumbs up. And if you haven't done so, also consider subscribing to my channel so we can have more of these chats. Bye.